Hello. You find me in another wood. But it's not just a walk today. I'm going to talk about something that I've threatened to talk about for a while. And that is astrology. Now, it's really quite interesting. Let me give you a few basics. I've studied it for getting on for 40 years now. And so because of how I am, I'm able to see random things connect that aren't random. How I did it, how I learned, was I decided I wanted to do my birth chart, because it's more than just your stars in a magazine. Even that doesn't really give you anything, mostly, because you have to read to get something nearer the truth. You have to read three. You have to read your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign, because the sign that it is talking about is based on it being in your first house. Now, I know some of you may not understand that, but what that means is the house that's just rising. So the house that's just below or on the horizon, or just below the horizon in the east. And it means the sign that's there on the horizon in the east when you were born. So it's not where your sun is. The sun could be anywhere. Now, during my research and my studies, and believe me, I know stuff that I won't even tell you because it's frightening. Obviously, in a closed private group, I may. Honestly, it's frightening. And it's happening. It happened. We're in it, we're going through some of it. Now, there are people that say it's just a load of rubbish, which is quite interesting, because that has been created by certain, organisations who want that to be true. They don't want people believing it's true, because then they can use it for their own ends. Now, it's not about things definitely happening, it's about energies that are there. That's what it's about. Because you're not fixed by your birth chart. You can change. They're just tools that you've got or haven't got. Or things that aid you, or things that hamper you. So anyway, during this, now, also one thing that you may find interesting, because if you've got any doubts, if you've got any doubts, why do we have the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn? They're based on the zodiac and how it is, and the stars and stuff. I'm going to go down this way for a change. Never been down here. But that's not true anymore. They should actually be the Tropic of Taurus and the Tropic of Scorpio, because everything has moved since it was first put there, but it's been left for some reason. It hasn't been changed. to adapt to how the relation with everything else and the earth and sun and everything, how that has changed. So it's not been changed. And then I found, well, I did my chart using one method, and I read it and I did the interpretation, and I thought, that's not me. That's not me. That's not me at all. Interesting. Channel, bound to be water. So I did a little bit more research and got myself another method, and I did it, and I did the interpretation, and I thought, yeah, that's me. That's me. Wow, that's really quite interesting. That is me. And then I did various other things and techniques that you can do, and then I found out that actually the real actual positions in the sky are 23 degrees out. That's a lot, isn't it? 23 degrees out. So that means if you go back 23 days before your birthday and you see where the sun is there, that's the sign you actually are. Now, the old system where we see, let's say for example, the 21st of June to the 22nd of July, or ish, is Cancer. But actually, it should be Gemini, because it should go back, or most of it should be Gemini. So that system, the original system that we all know, that's called the Tropical Astrology system. Now the actual real positions are known as the Sidereal Astrology or Vedic Astrology, because it's used more in India. It's a watercourse. I didn't really need to give you commentary on that, you could see, couldn't you? Yes. Apologies. So I looked into it. I've got a friend who went to India and did some training in it. Because it's not good, but it is good. It's not good, but it is good. It's an ash tree. You ready? Ding, 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 ding. And there's more up there. Is that chicken in the woods or not? Or is it just it's a dryad saddle, isn't it? So she did an interpretation of my chart, and although what you find is some things are kind of, are going to go across, some things you have and you'll find them in both systems, whereas other things will just not be there at all. And that is the case. Well, this looks like quite an old stump. That's an oak. or it was. And I thought, that's not me. Some bits could be applied to me, but so few. But because they believe that system, they viewed me differently, I think. Even though I was saying, look, I don't care if it's true. If it was true, I'd say so. But I don't want someone to know me and think things about me that just aren't true. That's an old ash, I think. But look at that, that's lovely, isn't it? With that ivy and the flower. Or flowers. And sorry, that's that planet, isn't it? Boom Hole. So anyway, where was I? Yeah, so I was a little bit upset by that because they wouldn't believe what I was telling them. And that, you know, because I always give everything some thought. If somebody tells me something that contradicts what I always thought about myself, I'll look into it just to see if it is true, you know, because we're all capable of deluding ourselves. And I think it's worse if you don't check it out than if you do. So then I thought a bit more. We're coming to a little patch of orange balsam here. Sorry, getting my favourite colours mixed up. Pink Himalayan Balsam. Big patch of it. Some more down in there. So I thought, so what happens then? Because what I found out was that, oh yes, we have to cross the root bridge. Wow, that was great. I always love something like that. Ooh. Now I want to go that way, but this looks interesting as well. So let's take the top route from, and then retrace our steps. Good job. There's no holes in my wellies. Oh, look at that tree in there with the knobbly bits. Oh, this goes round that way as well. Oh, okay, I didn't need to do that anyway. Oh, there's quite a lot of Himalayan Balsam. Oh well. Luckily I have contacts with this wood, so... Oh, look at this. I know the sadness is that it's fallen. And it is an ash. And it was in the water, and I guess the roots couldn't hold it. Now, I heard, I actually did a past life thing when I was at an astronomical station somewhere, may have been in Persia, but somewhere where the Mongols came and attacked. Don't know what that's about. I don't even know if I should share that. Anyway, But it was weird, it was strangely coincidental leading up to finding that. So I heard that now, this is quite a nice dark bit, isn't it? Wow. Oh, soggy, soggy, soggy. Oh, I'm sinking. Oh, wow. It may be worth the trek across here. Oh, look at that in there. Can we get through? Yes. So. Stepping stones. And we're over. Not that there was much water. Wow, it's soggy. Oh. This is a bit invasive here. Oh. Ooh. Yeah, so, well, the story goes, or some of the historical research says that the, don't even know if I'm following a path here. Yeah, there are people's footprints, so I guess I am. But, I hope I am. I'm about to come out in the sunburn. Anyway, the story goes that the Persians used to do everybody's chart. Yeah, so that's out into the field, so we're coming back. They used to do everybody's chart, and from doing that they could then correlate things, and that's how they learned how the planets affected people, just by seeing what the aspects were, what the influences were about, you know, all of that. And relating it back, which makes a lot of sense. That's how you do it. So I thought to myself that, well, that must have been going on as planets and signs were moving in their real positions, the sidereal astrology positions. And therefore the interpretations would then follow that. Do you see what I mean? So the interpretations of various things would develop and change as the planets changed in the zodiac above us. Doesn't that make sense? And it would also explain, so that's in terms of tropical astrology. because that adjustment in interpretation has made up for the movement of the planet, which would explain, you know, the difference. Now, I don't know how much the difference of, like, if you go back 23 degrees on each thing, or whether you go back 23 days. Let's get back over the roots. Yeah, you see what I mean? Because some planets, like Mercury for example, goes retrograde for 3 weeks, which means it appears to be going backwards. So if you went back 23 degrees during its period of going backwards, would that fit? See, these are things I don't know. These are questions that I have about it. Now, one thing that I did do when I did somebody's chart, or a couple of people, is I did the interpretation based on the one before. And I was met with blank expressions. They were looking at me like, no, this is bullshit, this is. And they said, no. And then I reach a point and I go, does that sound correct? And they're like, no. I said, good, because I've deliberately read you the wrong ones, just to see how, you know, how true it is, and also to test my accuracy. And then I did the interpretation based on the real one, and they were like, yeah, that's it. So I don't know, this is just something for thought for people. You know, people do say, how can it affect you? But then the moon moves the tides. Unless you believe in the flat earth theory, in which case something's moving them. It's an interesting theory to actually look at. Now, I say it's an interesting theory, and the reason I say that is because a lot of it does make sense. If you go and listen to a proper explanation, you know, it does involve astrology and various things, it does make sense. There are some things I have questions about, but it's not an easily, it's a dismissible theory if you just want to scoff without hearing the details of it. Oh, it can't possibly be true. But once you hear the explanation, it's like, oh yeah, all right. Not as scoffable as it sounds. Now, there are other things that you can do with astrology, and that is, you can draw a chart for any point you want, you know, and then look at the corresponding chart that gets drawn up from it. Really very interesting. And very interesting that apparently the authorities don't use that. So it's quite interesting that it coincides with things that they do, big events. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint an event, you know, especially if it happens over time, but it can be pinpointed by looking at... That wasn't a fart, that was something going over my wellies. Was there... I've forgotten my thread. Sorry. You know, some things can just be due to the influence of a planet moving. Now, one of the scariest things that happened was early on when I was doing my studies. I came across a book and that was talking about future times, i.e. now, and I really didn't like the sound of it because it involved the New World Order, and it actually said that in those words, and I read it, I was like, I don't like the look of that. I really don't like the look of that. And hey, here we are. Nice to have an aeroplane following us. You know, and that is happening now. That is now. I thought that was too long, too far in the distance for me to worry about. Maybe that's subconsciously affected my decisions, because in many ways I'm glad I haven't wasted my time building up and planning for a retirement and a future. Sorry if that sounds depressing, but I think it's a reality that many people need to face. Now, another thing about astrology is that it is a way of, it's a kind of psychological language. It's a way of putting behaviours and things, incidents, in a way that can be understood, you know? Nice bunch of poplar leaves there. So I find it useful for that. You know, I'm good enough at it to be able to see people, celebrities, actors, people in places, and be able to spot rising signs, sun signs, and even certain aspects that they may have in their chart. I'm pretty good at it. It's quite funny sometimes because people look at me and go, how do you know that? But the clues are there. You know, this is also one of the things that I do find is that this is why I don't do it so much now. But with astrology, you can take things down to the minutest detail. For instance, you could work out, for example, how someone likes their coffee. It is possible. So what I do find with a lot of astrologers that you see now, they've gone into the depths, the minutiae of astrology, whereas for me, you only really need the basic blocks, and you can see, because those basic blocks contain all the variations. And I'm now at a point where I can see that. You know, there's a limit to how much detail you need, because we all change, we all adjust. Some things are transient and move in and out. You know, I mean, it can be useful if you're struggling with a deep problem. There are ways to get to it, but also that same problem is somewhere in the basic blocks. And I think that's one of the failings of humans, is that we try and complicate everything, or maybe we're guided into complicating everything, because the more complications there are, the more people are stuck in the mire and the maze. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I try and keep everything simple as I can. Now, have I gone? Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got to go through it, haven't I? So that concludes my little chat about the basics of astrology. Thanks for coming. See you next time. Ta-da.